As we've been reporting, the president is dismissing what could be warning signs of a possible looming recession. It comes after a volatile week for the stock market. That included the day the yield curve inverted. Without getting too far in the weeds, it basically means investors see economic trouble on the horizon. The president apparently doesn't see the same warning signs. In a series of tweets Monday, he called the U.S. economy, quote, very strong. He criticized his hand-picked Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, and blamed Democrats for trying to, quote, will the economy to be bad for purposes of the 2020 election. Kayleigh McEnany is the Trump campaign national press secretary. She joins me now from Washington, D.C. Kayleigh, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Elaine.
So if the economy is so strong, why is the president attacking the chairman of the Federal Reserve?
Well, as the president said, the chairman of the Federal Reserve raised rates too quickly. This is not something that was done under the Obama administration. Now it's being done. And despite that, however, we have a booming economy. I would argue one of the hottest in modern history, with historic lows and generational lows in unemployment, wages growing at the fastest pace in a decade, high productivity, high growth, as we saw in last week's report, and the indicators go on and on. But still, the president believes the interest rates have been raised far too quickly.
The president said Sunday that he spoke with Apple's CEO. They discussed the impacts of tariffs and the trade war with China. Mr. Trump said Tim Cook made a, quote, good case the company would face difficulties paying the levies. Is the campaign worried about the economic impacts of the president's trade wars?
No, we're not. You know, this is a president who's open-minded. This is a president who listened to business owners and said, look, we'll delay this next round of tariffs until after December 15th to give consumers a break during the holiday season. But nevertheless, this is a president who is going to stand up to China when they're stealing our intellectual property, when they're forcing our technology to be transferred to their country, and when they're levying onerous tariffs upon us and taking advantage of the United States to the tune of billions for many, many decades. So this president knows there's a balance, and this president knows that he must stand up to China, and he has done just that.
If you say the campaign is not concerned about the economy, why is the president really trying to emphasize pushing back against the risk of a possible downturn?
Well, look, we're not concerned about the economy because this is the hottest economy in modern history. When you have, this is perhaps the greatest success of the Trump administration. So, you know, our concern doesn't lie with one of his greatest successes. When you look at across the nation, the fact that this has trickled down to the worker, to the employer, that the employee, rather, is winning in the Trump economy, with paychecks going up twice as fast for low and middle income Americans. This is the greatest achievement of the president. And when the underlying fundamentals of the economy are strong, there's no cause for concern, though the media and the left are really touting this narrative, we think unfoundingly so.
Perhaps this plays into that notion. However, the Washington Post is reporting that White House officials are eyeing a possible payroll tax cut in order to boost the economy. Why would that be the case if, in fact, the fundamentals are strong?
Because tax cuts work. The fundamentals are so strong because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed. They're strong because of the deregulation, this president slashing 22 regulations for every one that has been put in place. Those are the drivers of the economy. So another tax cut would simply drive more economic success, boost consumer confidence beyond the historic highs that it's already hit.
Wasn't the previous tax cut, though, as well as some of the other measures taken by the Trump administration, including, as you said, rolling back some regulations, wasn't that supposed to drive growth to 3%?
Well, we believe that because of the interest rate hikes, that has prohibited some growth. But this president has achieved extraordinary GDP growth. We saw just last week GDP for the second quarter was actually upgraded by, I believe, it was almost a 0.5 percentage point. So GDP is growing. We believe it will grow even more. And as was expressed by the president's economic advisor, should the Democrats pass the USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, that could add an entire percentage point to GDP growth. So we certainly hope Democrats will get to Congress and pass this very good trade deal.
I want to turn to the issue of gun safety, gun control. The president was asked yesterday about expanding background checks. Let's listen to some of that.
Congress is looking at it very strongly, bipartisan. I put in certain parameters which you somewhat know about. I'm also very, very concerned with the Second Amendment, more so than most presidents would be. People don't realize we have very strong background checks right now. You go in to buy a gun, you have to sign up. There are a lot of background checks that have been approved over the years. So I'll have to see what it is. But Congress is meeting, bipartisan. A lot of people want to see something happen. But just remember this, big mental problem, and we do have a lot of background checks right now.
So earlier this month, the president said we need intelligent background checks. Is the campaign concerned about perhaps alienating some voters on this issue of gun control?
Now, this president passed the Fix NICS Act, fixing the criminal background check system. So he has already done that. But the president is looking for solutions that work. It's why you heard him mention mental health there. He's looking at background checks to see if there's anything else that can be done there. But in addition to that, the mental health component is really important. It's why the president has advocated for so-called red flag laws that would keep guns out of the hands of deranged individuals like the Parkland shooter, who was known to authorities, who was known to the FBI, but nevertheless had a weapon. So this is an important measure that this president has put forward, has indicated he supports, and we'll see what Congress comes up with.
Finally, a new Fox News poll found the president failing to beat 4 of the top Democratic candidates in a head-to-head race. Of course, this is one poll. It is very early, but this included not even reaching 40% of the vote in matchups against former Vice President Joe Biden and Senators Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Kamala Harris. What is the campaign's view of these numbers?
Well, first, that poll measured registered voters, not likely voters, which we believe is a better indicator. Also, that poll oversampled Democrats by about 3 or 4%. So oversampling Democrats past what the turnout model was for 2016. So we're not looking at that poll or others with any concern. If we paid attention to the Michigan polling and the Wisconsin polling in 2016, rather than our own data, we wouldn't have had much success because our data showed a victory on the horizon while public polling did not.
Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Elaine.